Good evening, everyone. Welcome and thank you for dialing in for today's webinar, Women in Leadership, Life as an IAS Officer, organized by the PG Department of English and Women's Cell, NAM College, Kalikandi, in association with the Internal Quality Assurance Cell of our college as part of the Women's Week Celebration 2021. We all know that the International Day is celebrated annually every year in March 8th in order to commemorate the cultural and political and social economic achievements of women. The status of women in India has been subject to many changes over the span of recorded Indian history. Women occupied a higher status during the Vedic age, and we know that after some time this status got deteriorated, and today we have a situation which is changed for better, and we have women in almost all higher positions of power. Girls and women in Kerala are all well educated and mostly self reliant today. Still, we don't have much women in the legislature. That's the reality. And in other topmost powerful positions, and that's why a Kamala Harris or a similar ladies, when they get into the power, the media, they get into the attention of media immediately. So today we are here for this webinar, and I welcome y'all to this webinar. So as a program coordinator of this webinar, I would like to welcome you all first. So first of all, I would like to welcome the president of this function, Dr. Madhusudanan sir, who is the associate professor of Department of Physical Education of our college. Next, I would like to welcome the most important person, our chief guest, Ms. Ira Singhal, IAS, who is the first person with disability to top the prestigious Civil Services Examination 2014. She is actually the history maker in Indian Civil Service Examination. She has BE and MBA degrees from two of the top institutions of the country and has worked as a strategy manager for Cadbury India Limited before entering into civil service. She wanted to work for the society and hence she changed her career path. Before her selection as an IAS officer in 2015, she was rejected thrice by the government as an IRS officer in the same exam despite clearing it due to her disability. She decided to fight the rejection in Central Administrative Tribunal and won after a battle of 3 years. While waiting her joining as an IRS officer, she gave the examination again and got selected as an IAS officer. She currently handles 7 profiles in North Delhi Municipal Corporation, being District Collector Keshavapuram Zone, District Collector Karol Bagh Zone, Director Education, Director Community Services, Director Press and Information, DC of Advertising and DC of RP Cell and Parking. She was the brand ambassador for the Department of Disability, Ministry of Social Justice and Empowerment, Government of India. She is also the brand ambassador for Ministry of Women and Child Development, Niti Aayog, and is on the National Panel for Accessible Elections, Election Commission of India. Her innumerable awards include India Today's Women of the Year 2015, President's Gold Medal for topping the IAS training, First Ladies of India Award by the Ministry of Women and Child Development, Government of India. She is also recorded in the Limca Book of Records. She has been a speaker on wide-ranging issues like education, disability, gender issues, skill development, career counseling, etc. at more than 500 international and national conferences, industry forums, universities, colleges, and other top institutions of the country, including IIMs and IITs. She has been working towards various social causes, including empowerment of persons with disabilities, empowerment and promotion of transgender communities, women empowerment, prevention of child labor and child marriages, prevention of illegal conversion of green lands, promoting green energy, skill development, etc. She has rescued around 340 child and bonded laborers and restored them to their families within 1 year of her first posting as SDM Alipur in North Delhi district. She is also the first person to give a job to a transgender person full-time employment in a government office in India. Today, she is the Joint Director of Social Welfare Government, Delhi Government, and she is here today with us as our chief guest to have a interactive session with our students and with us. So I'm very happy to welcome you, ma'am, to this webinar. Thank you for joining us, Ira, ma'am. So next, I would like to welcome all the students and all the participants who are here on this wonderful evening to share with us this interactive session. Welcome you all to this webinar. I hope you will have a wonderful time, and this is actually a golden chance, so make full use of it. So I welcome each one of you to this webinar, and I invite the president of the function, Dr. Madhusudanan sir, to deliver the presidential address for the function. Thank you.
Yes, very good afternoon to all. Respected Chief Guest, Madam Ira Singhal IAS, our resource person, as well as Sai Varenya, and respected teachers, my dear fellow friends and students. Indeed, it's a great opportunity for the college to have such a presence of a very important dignitary, an IAS officer, interacting with the students in connection with the Women's Day celebration. I appreciate Department of Postgraduate Department of English for having taken pain to organize such a beautiful webinar in association with the Women's Cell as well as Internal Quality Assurance Cell of NIM College Kallikanti. So indeed, this is a very, very useful program. Ira Singhal IAS, as Sai Varenya said, she is an embodiment of indomitable spirit, and a lot of hardships she had to undergo during her life as well as in their official career. In spite of all these things, she has succeeded a lot, and she is working hard for our country, and indeed she is a model to emulate for the entire citizens of our nation. Here, and I should not prolong my speech. Once again, I appreciate Postgraduate Department of English, especially Sai Varenya. She contacted me a few weeks back in order to conduct such a program. And when she exchanged some idea about accommodating, say, Ira Singhal IAS for such a program, I will happily agreed and given an endorsement, as well as she has taken all her effort to accommodate her, and now it has become a reality. Now, Ira Singhal is with us today. In spite of her physical disabilities of scoliosis and all, she is an able leader to guide us. She has adorned many posts in Delhi government, and she has contributed much to society. And above all, she is a very down-to-earth personality, I could understand. Sai Varenya has given a nice introduction about her. As you are all waiting for to listen to her 5 life experience as a woman, as an officer, in all aspects, I hope she will do her level best to give all her life experience, and it will be a worthwhile experience for us. And I request all the participants to listen carefully, and if you have doubts and other clarifications, you may please exchange with her immediately after the session using our, obeying adhering to our guidelines. And I request all the participants to be very keen on her speech, and let me invite with all dignity and with proud, and I invite Sri Hira Singhal IAS, the Joint Director, Department of Social Welfare, Delhi Government, to address and explain and share her experience as an IAS officer and above all as a woman. Thank you so much. Please, madam.
One of the good things about careers like mine is that there have been a lot of women who have already been here, who have made their journeys, who have made the sacrifices, and who have done their bit to make life easier for those of us who follow in their path. So I am very lucky that I'm currently in a profession where there have been amazingly talented and powerful women who have paved the way for us, who have made it easy for us. But like always, especially in a country like India, nothing is really easy for women. Nothing is really, automatically accepted. So as a girl, as a woman, at every stage, you will have to sort of prove your worth again and again. Unfortunately, if you're a girl and if you're a girl with disability, the world questions your talent basis your looks. We live in this world where it's automatically assumed that if someone doesn't look perfect, they are obviously not perfect. So which basically means that you take a person's looks into consideration when you're trying to judge their talent. And unfortunately, women have to go through this more than anybody else. And so we live in a country where women are constantly judged on their appearance and constantly told that you are less talented. So when a girl is born, she's born with a guilt of having been born a girl. When Kerala is one of the nicer states where women have equal opportunity, and we have a birth rate which is the same as the rest as male. So congratulations to Kerala on that. And you girls have no idea how lucky you are. You girls have no idea of the kind of privileges you are getting, because you are relatively in a society where people aren't ashamed to have you for a daughter. But for most of us, for the most of this country, parents are ashamed that they have a daughter. Unfortunately, when a girl is born, the family does not celebrate. The family is grieving, and they kind of tell themselves that it's okay if we had a girl. It's okay if our child wasn't a male child and it was a girl child. I was very lucky. I come from that family where there was no difference between boys and girls. And we were all taught to think of ourselves as individuals, and we were all taught to work on ourselves as per our talents. So, and if you're a girl with disability, the world is even more cruel. The world is even more tough, because you constantly at every stage need to tell everybody that you have talents, you have abilities, and you need to prove them again and again. And that sort of continues through your life. So, the whole world has these things as good girls don't do this, and good girls don't do that, and good girls behave like this. Unfortunately, all their lives, women are taught to think in a way or to behave in a way wherein other people will like them. Women aren't taught to think for themselves. Women aren't taught to like themselves. They're taught to behave in a fashion where other people will value them, like them, will consider them worth having in their lives, or consider just these regular things about you are a good girl, hence you need to behave like that. Unfortunately, all girls go through that. And that's where the whole problem starts. That's where women are a little more hesitant when they go out in the world and prove themselves, or they go out in the world and work for themselves. While the scenario is a little less in civil services, but we must remember that we all come from the same society. We all come from the same, all civil servants, all bureaucracy, all offices are made up of people coming from the same society. So whatever is the attitude of the society, people carry that to work. So if, at home people think that girls are less, or that girls are only capable of taking care of the family, then that's what they bring to office as well. And I remember I was posted in, as a SDM, I was posted in a rural area, and it was one of those, I don't know how much you know about Haryana, and Haryana is on the opposite end of the spectrum from Kerala. Kerala has a very balanced male-female ratio. Haryana, on the other hand, completely skewed up massive reduction in female population. So I was posted in an area where Jat population, which is similar to the population of Haryana, is used to be the main resident. And I remember that even though I was the boss, even though I was the SDM, if people had a problem and they came to my office to talk to me, they would try to talk to my junior colleagues if there was a male sitting. So, you know, they will come to office and they'll be so surprised looking at me, and they don't know how to address a woman. They don't know how to tell their problems to a lady officer. So what they do is they look around and they try to find any male, and they will start talking to them. So they will not address you. They will not tell you their problem. They will tell that person sitting in front of you their problems and have whole conversation with that person. But at the end of the day, since you are the officer and you are the one who's responsible for the whole thing, I used to, you know, have to cut in and ask questions and tell them that I am the person you need to speak to and give solutions. But it's something that girls need to tend to, you know, constantly having to do. You need to constantly, if you're the boss, people don't want to see you as the boss most of the time. They don't know how to interact with you. They don't know how to talk to, tell you their problems. And they're not taught that women can also provide solutions, that women can also be leaders, you know. So it's quite very challenging and in a way funny scenario as well, because if you know, you can take it both ways. You can take it as them being offensive to you, or you can take it that they just don't know any better. They've never been taught equality, and hence you're there to teach them that. And in fact, you know, what happens is that over the period, people get used to you, and women officers actually end up getting a lot more respect than their male counterparts who might have been on the same positions. So if you are, you know, if you stick with it and if you're sincere in your work, you do get the respect, you do get people's appreciation, and you get a lot more, you know, support from public in your work than male officers do. So it's both ways. It works both ways. So it works for your benefit also, but in the initial, you will have those teething issues. And, you know, there isn't an obvious bias because today women have done everything. The biggest problem with girls is that we are not taught to think for ourselves. We are not taught to believe in ourselves. And that's where the biggest, you know, we get left behind, because when it comes to a public scenario, most of us are not ready to take a role which we should be taking. Most of us are very hesitant to ask for leadership positions, to really come out and say what you want. And you know, women have not been taught to be put themselves first, which is why we always get left behind, because we're constantly worried about what the world will think. And that is why we're constantly trying to mold ourselves into something that we are not, or which you know, other people want from us. And that doesn't help us. That doesn't solve any problems, and that just leaves you behind. That leaves you behind in a conversation. You always remain the follower. So it's very important for girls to start believing in themselves. And since childhood, you've been told girls should do this and girls should not do that. The way I see it, you should and should not do all those things that make you a good human being. So anything that you should do should be because that's what a good human being does. And what you shouldn't do shouldn't be things that, you know, a good human being does. That's it. And if you don't value yourself, if you don't think strongly of yourself, if you don't think you're capable, the world will never do that. The world will see you exactly as you see yourself. The world will relate to you the way you relate to yourself. If in my head I think I'm weak, I will behave weak, and the world will see me as weak. But if in my head I think I'm strong, I think I'm capable, I think I can do something, then that's what the world will see. You know, the whole outside world outside of you is a perception that you are carrying. So world will be nice if you choose to see the nice things. The world will be cruel if you choose to see the cruel things. In this, you know, in the same situation, all of us can see opportunities or failures. It's up to you how you take it. And unfortunately, most of us girls have not been taught to see ourselves as strong. But the day you do that, the day you stop making excuses for yourself as a girl, and the day you stop thinking of yourself as a person who is less, the world will do that. And I've done that in my life. I've been very lucky. I got those opportunities. But I think most women that I know are who have achieved something in their life, That's the one thing that they follow. They believe in themselves, and they don't let the world tell them who they can be. They don't let the world define their opportunities. They don't let the world define their personalities. You must remember that, I am the only person who has lived my experiences. Nobody has lived my life. Nobody has my same tastes or interests. Nobody has the same way of thinking as me, and nobody has the same talents as me. And all of that combined means nobody can know me as much as I know myself. Then how can someone else tell me what I'm capable of? I've believed that, and which is why I've always thought that, the world cannot define me. The world cannot tell me what I'm capable of. That's on me. And the day I think I can do something, I'm sure I can. And let's keep this interactive. Let's keep this for questions. I think I've been talking too long, and I'm bored listening to myself. I'm sure you guys are. So let's do questions, and you guys can ask me stuff and we'll talk.
Thank you, ma'am, for your wonderful talk. So, ma'am, we all wish to hear your life story. Your inspiring story of how you became an IAS officer, what challenges you faced in your way, and how you overcame all that.
I think challenges are more about people's perception. One of the biggest challenge that I've always had to face is how people see me and what they think I'm capable of. So, like you mentioned in the bio, I used to work in the corporate sector. And I was somebody who always wanted to be in a place, who always wanted to have a job wherein I made a difference, wherein I could make other people's lives better. So when I was working in corporate, there was this point where I was working 20-hour days. And I started thinking that I worked so hard, I worked so long, but really whose life did I make better? There was nobody who said that their day was better, their life was better, or their future had improved because I had done something for them and I had worked so hard. And my work, I felt, had no larger impact. There and I needed my day to have meant something. I needed my work to have meant something to someone. And that's why I decided to quit my corporate career and give civil services examination. And the first time I sat for the examination, I was rejected. I got through. So I don't know how much you know about this whole process, but so there is this, like CBSE is your, so for example, you have Kerala State Board or something. That's the body that conducts the examination. But then if from 10th to, if you're going to 11th, it's the school who will give you the admission, right? It's the school who will decide what subjects you get. So it's similar to that. UPSC is just the body that conducts the examination. And Department of Personnel and Training, that's the department that gives you the posting. So I got selected by the UPSC in the examination, but I was not given a posting because my disability was not recognized or was not accepted by any of the departments. But so there are two lists when it comes to people with disability. One is what is your disability, and second is what is your physical ability. So for the list of physical ability, I sort of fulfill the criteria for almost all the jobs. But when it comes to the disability, almost no jobs are available to someone like me except for the IAS, and which is why my rank wasn't good enough to get into the IAS or IFS, which were the two services I was most keen on, and I didn't get a posting in that. And what happened was that because I knew my rank wasn't good enough, so I was preparing for my second attempt. I didn't even check what happened with the result and what job I got or didn't get. But I started getting phone calls from other candidates who said that, ma'am, do you know what has happened to you? And I didn't know that something had happened to me. So I asked them, what do you mean? And, if someone calls you and tells you, do you know what happened to you? You start wondering if something happened to you. And so I investigated and I found out that because this had happened, that I had been rejected basis my disability. So, and I had come into this job to, not for myself, but to actually make a difference, to actually do something for others. So I decided to, I thought maybe this is my first step and this is how my journey is supposed to be. So I decided to go to court, and the strange part is that in my next two attempts as well, the same thing happened. I got a similar rank, I got the same service, And again, I was rejected in the next 2 attempts as well. So I went to court, and I got my appointment from the court, but the court agreed with me, and the court gave me my judgment. But I hope none of you really get involved with government litigation and all, because trust me, it's a long and tedious process. So what happened was that I was waiting for them to implement the court judgment, and in the meantime, I had nothing else to do. So I gave a final attempt, and then I went and joined my IRS, which was Revenue Services training. And after it started after the exam, so I went and joined that. I was studying there in the training. I was doing my training, and that's when the result for the IAS came, and then I went into the IAS. That's basically what the journey is.
That's a really inspiring story. So I would like to know, how was your life before IAS and after getting IAS as a woman? So was there any significant change?
Honestly, I just have less time now. That's it. See, your life will change if you want it to change. If you think that there is something different about you now, and if you decide that you are, better than everybody else around you, or you need special privileges for yourself, like I said, the world looks to you the way you look at yourself, right? The world will feel to you the way you decide to feel about it. So if you think that there is something different about you, if you think that there is something which has changed about you, then the world will. But honestly, in my case, nothing has changed. I still do the same things. I still, have the same lifestyle. Just that I have less time now, possibly. That's it. And I think that first initial time that you need to prove yourself, that's a little less now than it was before. That instant moment where someone meets you and they're constantly thinking that because you're a girl and you're a girl with disability, so you obviously do not have talents. That doesn't happen as much now. It does happen in some cases, but it's a lot less now. I think that's the biggest change, that people don't automatically, if they know who I am, if they know that I'm an officer, then that assumption that I don't know anything because I'm a girl and I'm a girl with disability, that doesn't happen as much. But yes, for strangers, that still it does happen. They still, people are a lot less ready to listen to women when they're talking, and people are a lot more dismissive of women's opinions. So that doesn't happen as much now like it used to before. So I think that's the biggest change possibly.
So my next question is that when talking about leadership, we have very few women, even in legislature, like we have only Indira Gandhi and we have only one Smriti Irani, Pratibha Patil, etc. So what can we do in order to promote women in leadership roles?
The first thing is girls need to stop listening to what the world tells them they should be. Girls need to start, believing in themselves and make their own dreams and plans. The biggest problem is since childhood, women are taught not to, think too much for themselves. Women are taught that this is what we are telling you to do, so you must behave like this. So girls are put inside this box and they are told to stay within the boundaries of that box. But if you really want to succeed in a leadership career, that's not how it works. You will need to stand up for yourself. You will need to believe in yourselves, and you will need to, go out and make your own dreams and plans and pursue them. That's the biggest problem, that girls are still not given that confidence to have dreams, to plan for themselves, to make, agendas. So I think that's where we're lacking the most. And that's the reason that there are lesser women in all leadership positions, simply because since childhood, women are not groomed to take on leadership roles. We are always taught to be, that homely girl or the adjusting girl. And if you're an adjusting girl, you cannot be a leader. If you're a girl who just listens to everybody around them, then you will obviously just be listening. I'm not saying be unkind or selfish or self-centered. I'm saying do those things, but that doesn't mean you need to be unkind to yourself. You don't need to put yourself down to respect someone else. You can respect yourself and that person as well, and start believing in your talents. start seeing the positives inside you. That's another problem. Since childhood, girls are always taught you are not a good girl because you didn't do this. So women naturally tend to see their own faults more than they see their own talents, and that's a problem as well. Girls naturally tend to see all the things that are wrong with them than all the things that are right with them. And even the prettiest girl thinks that she's ugly. The smallest thing about you, you will think about it, you will make a big deal about it. If you stop focusing on things you don't have or things you're bad at, and instead focus on things you do have and things that you're good at, it will change the world for you. And that's, I think, something that women need to be taught. Girls need to be taught to be stand up for themselves, believe in themselves, and see their own talents and positives, rather than focusing on things that they don't have or things that are lacking in them. That will change the way women come out and come into leadership roles.
We know that civil service is one of the most prestigious jobs in government sector we have in India, and we have lots of smart, brilliant IAS officers like you in the bureaucracy. So my question is, as a bureaucrat, did you ever felt or did you ever feel that there is any sort of gender bias or gender inequality or any gender disparity in the Indian bureaucracy?
So there have been women since the beginning of Indian bureaucracy. So thankfully, it's not as much. There are still roles that women officers have never had. There do exist those roles, but the conscious bias isn't there, though it may be there at the subtle level. It may be there that there have been women who have not been in certain roles, but it's slowly changing. And women are getting, the more number of girls that come into the profession, the more those opportunities will be available. So I think it's about that. See, the positions are just that much, right? There are only 100 jobs. Now, if there are only 2 women out of 100, only 2 jobs will go to women, right? So only 2 kind of roles will go to women. The other 98 will not. So when more and more women come in, the system becomes, more adjusting to women. So there's a problem in Indian work scenario that unfortunately, professional environments are built to the needs of the men. They're not built for the needs of the women. They're not built for the social construct that women live in. And that is one thing that does discourage women from getting into professional lives. But I think if we can, a lot of us can get in and a lot of us can stand together, then all of that will change. And specifically in bureaucracy, because there have been women who have fought for us, who have stood by, who have taken a stand, and who have, paved the way, the problems are a lot less. The biases are a lot less. They're not as obvious. There would be one-off cases where this would have happened, but not as much. It's because naturally it's a leadership role, right? So if you're a leader in some way, those kind of things happen to you a lot less.
Leadership, career, and motherhood. Can it go hand in hand perfectly?
Absolutely, it can. But you must remember that if you constantly feel guilty about being a bad mother and having a career, then it won't. See, like I said, women are born with guilt, guilt of not having been born a male. And so they spend the rest of their lives trying to make up for that guilt, trying to atone for that guilt. And that's where the problem rises. So if as girls, you can, tell yourself that it's okay if I'm not perfect. It's okay if I'm not able to do everything, and just do what you can. It definitely can. The problem becomes that girls are so guilty about not being perfect mothers and not constantly being there for their children that they let go of their roles and they fall down. So it can go hand in hand. And if you have a supportive partner, if your partner is somebody who understands the requirements of your job, who understands the needs that you have with your role, and a lot of men today are the type who do understand that, who are adjusting. So you need just the people around you. See, all of us are whoever we are because of the families we come from. So if your family is supportive and if your family is there with you, then you can do whatever you want and you can do all the things. And trust me, women are excellent at multitasking. Most girls can do 5 things together. So, we're amazing at multitasking. So leadership and motherhood, absolutely. Just that you need to make sure that your environment is a positive environment. If you're in a positive family, if your family is such that stands by you, that supports you, you will definitely be able to do everything.
Recently, the Supreme Court of India stayed the Bombay High Court order which acquitted a man under the Protection of Children from Sexual Offences (POCSO) Act, saying groping a minor's breast without skin-to-skin contact cannot be termed as sexual assault. How do you view this incident, ma'am?
I think Supreme Court is already talking about it, so maybe I shouldn't be talking about it. Let Supreme Court handle this.
Okay, how do you define women empowerment?
To me, women empowerment is a girl believing in herself, a girl seeing herself as a person with capabilities, and a girl seeing herself as a person with potential and talents. That's it. It's about you not letting the world tell you who you can be, you not letting the world set your boundaries in terms of where you can reach and what you can do. So that's women empowerment to me. It's about it doesn't have to do with anybody else. Nobody else comes into the picture. The only person that it is about is yourself. If you think you are worthy, if you think you have talents, if you think you can do something, then that's women empowerment to me. All girls standing up and seeing the good that they have, not the things that they don't have. Don't think about how dark you are, or how ugly you are, or how short you are, or how bad your hair are, or bad your eyes are, or bad your teeth are. All of that doesn't matter. The only thing that really matters at the end of the day is what you do with who you are. And all of us have something that we can do. All of us have some talents we can do. You can feel bad about all those things that you don't have, or you can spend your life doing making something out of the things that you do have. And it's a choice that you make. It's a everyday conscious choice that you need to make. That am I going to be a person who sits and looks at what things I don't have and feel bad about myself and judge myself, or be jealous of other people, or value myself less? Or I see all the things that I'm good at and I focus on that, improve those things, and go on to live an amazing life. So it's a choice that women make, and the day girls start making the choice about positivity, day girls start making a choice about all the positives that they have, all the talents that they have, and stop looking at things that they don't have, that's women empowerment.
Okay, is women empowerment a myth or reality in today's world?
Of course, it's a reality. It does happen. We wouldn't be sitting here, would you and I? Yeah.
Okay. So, can you tell me what was the most stressful part about working at women's empowerment? You were into different ministries of social justice and empowerment, Ministry of Women and Child Development. So, can you please tell us what is the most stressful part about working at women's empowerment?
No, there's nothing stressful. There is absolutely nothing stressful. Please remember that stress in life also comes from things that you want to take stress about. If you want to worry about something, nobody can stop you. You can take you can be stressed about being happy. You can be stressed about being rich. You can be stressed about anything in life that you choose to have. So it's not stressful. What I would say is that, like I said, the biggest problem that comes in is about getting girls to start believing in themselves and letting go of all the things that they've been taught since childhood. Because if from the day you are born, you've been put in a box, it's very tough for you to break out of that box. It's very tough for you to find resources to step out, to do your own thing, and to conquer the world in that way. So that's, I think, the biggest and the toughest part.
Persisting inequalities between women and men, gender bias, and stereotypes also results in unequal access of women and men to justice. So, ma'am, what can we do to guarantee equal access of women to justice?
See, it all starts from home. It all starts from families. The day thinking of girls as equals, and the day families stop feeling bad about having had a girl child, it will go away. The day parents stop feeling, that something went wrong if they had a girl, all of this will go away. The problem starts there. The problem is of, the family not giving the girl confidence to be herself. So access to justice also comes from that. If I, as a girl, I'm scared all my life, I'm scared of taking decisions, I'm scared of stepping out, of standing up for myself, then obviously I will not have access to justice, because I will be too scared to talk about what went wrong. Do you know the number of people who do not report domestic violence? The number of women from all strata of society who do not report domestic violence, it's a huge number. Just the tip of the iceberg is what we know about. Almost, in my perception, I think majority of women go through domestic violence. They just don't understand or see it as violence because they're so used to thinking of this as normal. So the access to justice will only come with families teaching their daughters that it's okay to be themselves. It's they should be proud of who they are. They should look at themselves as people with opportunities and people who have a right to be there as much as anybody else.
How is it to be a female officer working in a man's world? You have already spoken about your experience in Haryana. Do you have any similar experience like that?
It's sort of when you're in a public service sort of role, when you deal with people every day, these kind of things kind of constantly happen. So it's not really one instance like that. It's a lot of instances. Every day something happens. So, it's just the initial days. It's just in the beginning. After that, it's absolutely fine, and there is no difference. See, if I think there is a difference, and there will be a difference. If I'm an officer and I think, oh my God, it's dark, I need to go back home, and I can't do this because I'm a lady officer and I can't do that, then there will be a difference, right? But that's about you. That's not about the situation or the people. So beyond the basic first impression, it is mainly about you. If a lot of those experiences are repeated for you, then it's your problem. It's not the society. So it's always just that first 1 second, but after that, it's generally fine. People are used to lady officers. People know that women also come into those roles. So it does get okay.
Do you think that COVID-19 lockdown has increased the number of domestic violence in India?
Absolutely. Yeah. All the statistics prove it. It's not about me thinking. It's literally the data proves it. And the number of... and one more thing is because it got so bad that a lot more women then started reporting it. Before that, they didn't report most of it. This time with COVID lockdown, people felt it a lot more strongly. Like if somebody used to get slapped once a month, they would get slapped now twice a day. So the numbers increased, the amount of volume that women faced increased so much that a lot of them were forced to report it. Plus, a lot of them got medical injuries. So, they had to report it. But even more than that, people who weren't undergoing domestic violence previously did go through that now. Because, if you didn't have anybody else to take out your frustration on, you took it out on your wife. And that was the easiest thing. So a lot more. Absolutely. Domestic violence numbers across the world have gone up.
Is gender bias rampant in civil service postings and career development?
No, not at all. We have so many secretaries who are women officers. Not at all.
Now, I think our students might have some questions. So, dear students, it's your time. You can ask your questions to Ira ma'am.
I think we have around 5 minutes to take questions.
Students, now you can shoot up your questions.
Good evening, ma'am. Am I audible?
Yes, you are. Farzina, right?
Okay. Yes, ma'am. I'm Farzina, and I'm doing my post-graduation at NM College.
Okay.
And it's my immense pleasure to be with you in this webinar.
Thank you.
And would I ask you some questions?
Please go ahead.
Okay, ma'am. You're such a versatile genius, and you will be definitely having a role model, right? So who is your role model, and is there any woman who influenced and inspired you a lot in your life? So eager to hear you from this.
So I'm somebody who tends to learn from everybody around me. From Mother Teresa to Rani Lakshmibai to Florence Nightingale to almost Sarojini Naidu, to all women who've been inspiring stories. And by the way, I also learn from little kids, and for me, it doesn't matter who you are. I tend to see good in others, and I tend to learn from that. I'm somebody who tends to, observe people a lot, and I think everybody has something to teach if you want to learn. So I don't have any specific role model as such, but I have definitely learn from everybody that I meet, and I really mean it. I learn from everybody that I meet, even things that having courage to speak up, or having courage to step out, or having courage to be socially less awkward. Just little things from everybody. I tend to do that.
Okay, thank you so much, ma'am.
Yeah. If we're not having questions, then maybe we should close this. Yeah.
Ma'am, am I audible?
Yes. Yes, please.
Hi,
What is the message that you can give to the students?
I think there's a girl who is asking something. Should we go to her first?
Let her finish. Let her finish.
Yeah, Hiara, please go ahead.
No, sir. Yeah, ma'am, it's a great pleasure to have you here, and I see it as a great opportunity to talk to you. To be honest, let me tell you that I never see your success in having rank of 1 in civil service examination. Your personality defines success. I'm really impressed by your personality, always happy, bold, and very much satisfied with your life, and it really impressed me a lot. And you never complain your disability, and I really am really impressed with that. And you don't have much time. Let me come to question. First of all, ma'am, everywhere we have been celebrating Women's Day, and we have been promoting women empowerment program. The government have been conducting many campaigns and enacting laws for the empowerment of women. What kind of changes it made recently, or how well it had an impact in our society?
You know what? The biggest thing that happens is that you and me are talking about it. That's the biggest thing. Social change comes from enough people talking about it. So let's talk about acceptance of transgenders, because a lot of people talk about it, and a lot of people now say that it's okay. It suddenly has become okay, and those people now get those opportunities. It's the same way with women empowerment. It's because we talk about it and we tell people that, listen, this is what is going wrong, and we make people think. Problems like this are all about the way we think. So if we talk about it, we make people think, we make everybody take a pause, and we make people go, oh yeah, I did that, and that's how things will change. And that's the biggest thing that comes out of situations like this, that enough people start thinking about it, enough people start talking about it. That's how revolutions start. That's how world changes. That's the biggest thing that will happen. Yeah. And there'll be a lot more parents. There'll be a lot more many parents who will come out and think that they need to give that girl that opportunity, because other girls also had that opportunity. So if you put out talk about a lot of women who are doing big things, then there'll be some parents who will also think big for their daughters, and that will change the world.
Ma'am.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you.
So there is one question in the text. Yes.
Have you ever visited Kerala, and what's the perception about Kerala?
Yeah. I have been to Kerala. I've been to Poovar and Kovalam and Thiruvananthapuram and Cochin side. I've seen quite a bit of Kerala.
What's the perception about Kerala?
It's beautiful. Like it's an amazing place to visit. I have a lot of close friends from Kerala. In fact, with me, my rank 2 who was also a girl from Kerala, Renu Raj, who was from Kerala. So yeah, we're very, very good friends. So there's a question which is, what is the role of media in gender roles? Media actually plays a very big role. Media is how people's perceptions get defined a lot of the times. So for example, if in movies you see that it's okay to chase a girl after she said no, that's what the world starts thinking is okay. There are songs about it that tell you that please chase the girl. She just, songs that say, I will not leave you till you say yes. I will keep following you. actually it's a stalker move, and it basically will get you arrested, because in law that's illegal. You're a stalker. You will get arrested, and it's completely illegal. But because movies are telling you that it's okay, you start thinking it's okay. Movies tell you that it's okay to write letters in blood, and people think it's okay. So movies and media absolutely does a lot. A lot of the movies make women into objects. They objectify women. They treat women as just the pretty girl. And movies tell you that only girls are valued only for their looks. So, which is how a lot of women are made to focus just on their looks and not really on their talents. And that's the problem. In Indian movies, still we have a successful girl who's running a company is the evil person in the whole movie. So if you're a girl who's letting herself be abused and ill-treated, then you're the nice girl. And that's where we start teaching girls that it's okay to be abused. It's okay to take ill behavior. It's you are a nice girl, so you must accept whatever the world does to you. And that's the biggest problem. So yes, media does a lot in defining gender roles, and it is today's media which is also defining the role in the other way. So it's media plays an amazingly important role when it comes to people's biases. Yes, please. Go ahead.
Ma'am, my name is Badshah, studying in Trivandrum University College. Ma'am, who is your role model?
I've already answered this, Badshah.
Ma'am, my name is Badshah,
I
studying.
already answered this question.
Okay, ma'am.
Yeah, so should we close? I think there may not be.
What is the two-line message, ma'am? Ma'am,
Yeah,
what is the exact message that you can give to our students, especially the participants? The majority of them are girls.
I just want to say one thing to all of you. Don't let the world tell you who you can be. The world does not know you. The world has not lived your life. The world does not have an idea of what goes on in your head. The world doesn't know how strong you are. The world doesn't know how talented you are. You are the only person who really knows you. So don't let the world tell you who you can be. Don't let the world define you. Don't let the world keep you in a box. You make your plans. You make your dreams. Until the day you start believing in yourself, the world won't. So my one message to all of you girls there, and everybody, whether it's girls or boys, everybody out there, is you need to believe in yourself. The world will see you the way you see yourself. If you see yourself as someone who has all those flaws, then the world will see your flaws. If you see yourself as a person with amazing potential, then that's what the world will see. So that's my only message. Please see yourself as someone with potential, as someone with talent, as someone who can do things. And that's what the world will see. My best wishes to you all. I hope you all go ahead and make all of us proud.
Any more questions? Do you have any more
Hello,
questions?
Ma'am.
Yes, Indraja.
Okay. Good evening, ma'am. My name is Indraja. I am from postgraduate department. Ma'am,
Yes, please.
can I ask a question?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, ma'am. Many colleges and other institutions are conducting programs to teach self-defense in order to bring empowerment. Will teaching self-defense bring empowerment in reality?
I'm a little personally very divided on that. I think, I don't believe in violence. So self-defense, if it gives you confidence, great. It solves the purpose of empowerment. But, I think the bigger thing that we need to do is we need to teach our boys how to behave. We need to teach our boys how to be with women, how to treat girls as equals, how to treat girls with, I won't say respect like you do with the Devi and then you, do all those other things as well. My point is we need to teach our boys how do you treat girls as equals, as people with the same talents as you, as people who deserve the same respect as you do. So that I think is more important than anything else. So I think, violence can solve just that much.
Okay, thank you, ma'am.
You're welcome.
Ma'am,
Yes.
ma'am, I am Tejaswi. I am from post-graduation department. My question is, what's your message to young girls and the women of our nation?
I already said that just before this.
Okay, ma'am.
Any more question? Is there any
Hello,
question?
ma'am. Good evening. Hello, ma'am. I am Dr. Munira from NM College, Associate Professor, ma'am. My question here is, whenever we speak about gender equality, we are speaking only about or from the side of female only, ma'am. Here, my question here is, what is the role a man can perform for gender equality?
I think men, one of the reasons we haven't yet had gender equality is because all conversations about gender equality and empowerment are being done with women. We are only talking to girls how to feel equal and how to be empowered. We're not talking to the boys. That's the biggest flaw in our whole strategy. So society is both the people. If only women start believing they're equals, it won't happen. It's you are equal when other people believe you are equal to them, right? You're not equal if you think you are equal. So we need to start bringing the boys into the conversation, and this whole thing will only change when men start changing their attitudes towards women around them. And by the way, it's not the fault of men. It's the way they have been brought up. So we need to change the way our little boys are taught about girls, the way they are asked to look at girls. One of the things that happens is that we tell our boys that you need to protect your sister, as if your sister is someone who can't take care of herself. You know, we've put that in their head that the girl is weak. The girl needs someone to take care of her. So you need to protect your sister. Even things like that. Instead of the girl being told both of you need to protect each other, we tell the boy that you need to protect your sister. I mean, think about it. The messaging is, she's less, she's weak, she's less. So you are the big person, you are the better one, you are the stronger one, and hence you need to do things. So how is that empowerment? How is that equality? So I think the conversations that we have in our families, they need to change. And unless we bring in the boys on the same page as women, it will not happen. So you're very right, and thank you brought it up, because I do talk about it, but somehow we didn't get into that domain here. But no empowerment can happen unless we bring men into the same conversation.
So, is there any more question?
I'm sorry, Sai, we cannot take any more questions. I need to leave. It's already very late.
So let's wind up. So thank you, ma'am, for your enlightening, motivating, inspiring session. And thank you so much for finding time to be with us in your busy schedule, making this evening a wonderful for us. I thank you on behalf of our principal and HOD and others who cannot be here due to some other commitments. And I invite Dr. Mini ma'am for the vote of thanks.
Yes. Hello. Hello. Am I audible?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. Very good evening,
Yes,
all of
you're
you.
audible.
Really, we have a wonderful evening till this time. The interaction with Madam Ira Singhal. Really, the session was motivated all our participants. Ma'am, you have encouraged the women participant as well as all the participants, and saying the message, try to believe in your positive and try to think in your positive in ourselves, and really make your world with our own motivations and our own views. Really, the words are encouraging us. So, on behalf of Women's Cell NAM College and on behalf of all the participants present here, I express our sincere gratitude to you, ma'am. In this constrained time, you are with us, and regarding with the Women's Day celebration program, really we thankful to you, ma'am. And I also thank to Dr. Madhusudan sir, who have presided over the function, and also Ms. Ivarenia, who have delivered the wonderful introduction about ma'am, and to all the participants. Thank you once again. Thanks.
Thank you, and thanks for having me. Good day.